Well, it's not very often we get these opportunities to maybe have a bit of downtime and recover and regroup. I think the international window has given the majority of players a nice balance between a bit of refreshment physically and mentally, but also some much needed work on the training field as we plan for what will be another very intense 5 games in 15 days against some top opposition. So it's been a good balance, and the players look in a good place for the time that they've had to recover. And I hope that the result of that will be seen at the weekend.
Thank you, Gary. We'll start with Tim Sullivan, then we'll go to Drake Hills. Go ahead, Tim.
When you have the amount of downtime that you guys did, what do you prioritize? Is it mostly getting rest for the guys that weren't called up to their national teams, or is it, maybe trying to tweak some things that you guys have been doing either, tactically or physically?
To be honest, I think it's a bit of both. This time around, probably more so than any other time that I've been here, I felt as though the guys, number one, needed a break. Secondly, I'd set a bit of a challenge for the group, and those guys, in fact, all of the fellas had done an incredible job of hitting those targets points wise, and maintaining a level and a standard of play to keep us in a very good position. So there was a bit of a reward thrown in there as well. I think it's been hugely helpful to get away from the training ground for 3 or 4 days after that final game in New York, and seeing everyone come back in a much brighter and more sort of positive and energetic disposition, if you like, has meant that the work that we've been able to get through has been that much more productive. And you see a few cobwebs in the first couple of days, but still plenty of good work to be achieved. And I think as I look back on the body of work that we've been able to cover, and there will be some things in there that we can reinforce that we've been doing well. And I think there's also been some areas of our game that have just got a few frayed edges to them. And you get that sometimes when you're playing so much and you're unable to really point that out in some more practical surroundings on the training field.
Go next to Drake Hills, then we'll go to Ben Ryan. Go ahead, Drake.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Hey, Gary, good to see you again after a little bit of a layoff. We've seen what the players have been up to and trying to kind of get away from the work and be able to do their thing. But I'm curious for you, what was it like for you being able to have that time where you at least one day of trying to do something, maybe take your mind off of things? What were you up to, and how did you balance that with obviously getting back into the swing of things?
This time of year, it's incredibly difficult to switch off completely, with 6 games to go and such a challenging schedule of away games in this latter part of the season. And also playing against some of the top teams now to see the schedule out. So it's not easy. However, there were a couple of days, certainly straight after the New York game, that I was able to literally just, try and shut the curtains and sit in a dark room and forget about everything, really. Just make sure that, mentally I'm having some downtime around the family. Sometimes just doing normal things, getting out and having a bite to eat, and, even spent some much needed social time with my wife, which is always very nice. She's always complaining about the lack of time that I actually spend around her. So it was lovely, to be able to go out and have a drink and just have a very normal period of time, and then start to get myself back together again for what is going to be a very exciting and interesting run.
Go ahead, Ben, then we'll go back to Dre.
Yeah, Gary, did you get much of a chance to watch the 4 guys on international duty? And what do you expect from them, I guess, this coming weekend? Do you expect any of them to be involved?
I didn't see the first round of games. I have to admit, my boy had a game and it collided with the whole schedule that was on that day. So I got to see the other games. You know, really pleasing, obviously, to see Annabelle and Walker at the centre circle with the armbands on in the game out in Panama. Alistair's had another terrific round of qualifiers. Randall hasn't played as much. You know, all in all, I think for the guys, there'll be obviously some mixed feelings on results and how this is all mapped out for them. But you know, we'll get their data back slowly in the next 24 hours. It's always difficult to try and work out physically where those guys are at. The fact that Alistair's played 3 games in a short space of time again is obvious to see, but it's not until you get their actual data back that you can tell, you know, how much stress their bodies have been under in those games. And Alistair's a young man, you know, he's I'm sure high as a kite at the moment in the way that things are going for him and his country. So he'll be in a very positive mood, and I'm sure wanting to be involved. And he's, of course, a big part of what we are at the moment. But I think the guys come back into town today. We'll evaluate their mental and physical position, and then I'll make some choices from there. But, you know, the guys that have been here have worked hard, they've had some rest, they're ready to go, they're raring to go. So there's some exciting and some important decisions to make.
Go ahead, Drake, then we'll go to Tim.
Going into, as we mentioned before, just these next few matches at the end of the regular season, you know, playoff experience is probably vital for the guys. And I'm sure for you, having some of the more senior players being able to at least do that bulk of the work in the locker room to make sure everyone's focused on that front. One of those guys obviously is CJ, having some experience on that front, and this being his first year. I'm curious to know what type of factor this can CJ have, has CJ had this year, coming into his own, not only on the field, but of course, bringing that sort of MLS Cup playoff and MLS Cup final pedigree as you guys inch closer towards playoffs.
Well, I think that's the first thing, Drake. You know, nobody's taking anything for granted here. You know, we play some of the top sides in this running. I've mentioned it 2 or 3 times, and for a particular reason. We go to DC, we go to Philly, we play Orlando, New York are in fantastic form. You know, these are tough games, and we've got 4 out of the next 6 away from home again. So there is no given, especially in this Eastern Conference this year, more than any other that I've seen. So, number one, we have to get the right balance of quality play on the field, of professional play on the field, and obviously those individuals will determine whether we add points to the board and we can confirm our spot in the postseason. Once we've done that, the question I think you're asking is, you know, what and how has CJ enhanced the group and what will he be able to give us? Well, I think we've been able to see over the course of this 28 games that we've already had, that he's been a wonderful addition to the group. You know, really good tally so far in front of goal. But I think there are so many other qualities that he brings to the group, not just that connection and that creation and, of course, his goal scoring, his attitude, his work rate, his determination. He's added to an already very disciplined and spirited group. And, of course, his background and his achievements up to date give us, I think, a little bit of an edge when that time of year comes round. He will have seen the challenges and the pressures and the stresses of post-seasons. He's been successful. He knows what it takes. He looks after himself, and I'm sure when that time comes around, he'll be in the best shape possible to try and add to his tally. But you know, I'm very aware and appreciative of not looking too far ahead too soon. I think it's you know, it's a recipe for disaster if you do that.
We'll go to Tim Sullivan, and we'll wrap up today's session with Coach Smith with Ben Wright. Go ahead, Tim.
As you look at your previous game against DC, especially the nature of that game, does it make it a little more difficult to prepare and remind the guys that, this is a serious contender for playoff positions because of, I guess, the scoreline that you guys finished with last time? And then what do you expect to see out of DC as you make your way there this weekend?
Well, first and foremost, it was a very, very good win at home against them. I think we saw all of the qualities and the abilities that they have. A team that plays with their heart on their sleeve. And, they'll be, I'm sure, very much up for this challenge against us, having been beaten at our place. The implications are massive. Their form has seen them, go through the gears and put themselves in a very good spot, as you've said. I don't think anyone will take it for granted. I really don't. Any of the build-up, the information and the preparation that I've tried to lay out for the guys is one of, toughest game of the season. It will be a real blood and thunder challenge. There'll be an awful lot on the line for both teams. We still have lots to prove. We certainly want to finish in the very best position we can. And if we can get a result against this talented group, then we've got a much better chance of finding ourselves in a terrific spot. And as I say, with 6 tough games to go, every point counts for every team. So I don't think either team will be taking it too lightly.
Last question. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, Gary, I know before the season, no worries, Matt. I know before the season, 45 points was kind of talked about as a benchmark. You're sitting on 47 with 6 left. Do you have a target for the next 6 games that you're looking to hit?
Yeah, I truly have a mental target. I'm not prepared to share that. The players will be given their challenge tomorrow as we look a little bit deeper into the weekend's game. And I think if anything else, is given just a little bit more of an incentive to the group. That they understand the magnitude of where we finish, of what that means in the postseason, and of course initially getting into that position. So, I think as we look at these final games, we'll all have our idea of what we can get and how we can get it. But we're running into these first couple of games. We run into DC and Philadelphia, who are serious contenders for the top 4. And in between, we run into last year's champions. And, I don't think they can be written off by any stretch. They may not have had the sort of season that everyone would have expected, but winning a championship and achieving what they did last year gives you, it galvanizes the group at important times. And I can fully see them going on a bit of a tear in the last few games of the season and making a charge for those playoff spots. So, 3 incredibly tough games. If we can be in a position by the end of this week where we're secured a postseason berth, I think that's our first challenge.
How, as you kind of have been one of the longer standing members of this team dating back to the USL days, how excited are you to see, first of all, obviously the Titans playing, but like the opportunities of seeing like the Predators, for example, as well? How excited are you to be a part of a city where so much excitement is going on in the sports world, and obviously being a part of it yourself with NSC?
Yeah, I think when we came here, I didn't realize the impact that not only Nashville SC would have on the community, but the Titans, Preds, even the Sounds. And to see us do extremely well last year and this year, the Titans do extremely well last year, and the Preds are always great. I think to form a great city that's centered around sports is something that's going to be great for just for the citizens here. It gives them something to look forward to, keep up with. And coming from New York, like growing up as a Knicks fan, like, man, following a bad team can be tough at times. So it's like it's so good to have a city where you have sports teams doing well, they're enjoyable, the atmosphere and the games are always so much, and I'm blessed to be a part of it.
Go ahead, Drake. Then we'll go to Ben.
Yeah, Taylor, I'm curious as if you really kind of found yourself having a big workload and trying to go down that left side when Gary would have Dan on the right. I'm curious, as you've gone into the season now, is there some form of attack or something that this team can use as a threat that maybe doesn't get talked about much in terms of like an underrated factor of this team as a reason why it's done as well as it's done?
No, I don't. I wouldn't say underrated. I think just the way that our style of play is and the way that, we have so many attacking options, whether it's Honey, whether it's Randall, whether it's Daniel, whether it's CJ. I think our ability to be very versatile, go through the middle, but also go out wide, utilize guys like Dan, guys like Alistair, myself, to be able to whip in crosses to help and find someone's head to put in the goal. I think having different versatility of options is what we're about. Don't think there's a side of our game that's ever underrated. But, like from talking to other teams, I think, we're a team that other teams don't like to play. Our style of play, the way that we fight and our tenacity makes us, every game a challenge for everyone. So we're proud of that.
Go ahead, Ben, then we'll swing it back over to Tim.
Yeah, Taylor, obviously sitting in second place with 6 games left. I don't think many people around the league expected that going into the season. Do you feel like you guys have been maybe overlooked a little bit, and how has that motivated you throughout the season?
Yeah, I think anytime anyone says, they put out projections or whatever, I always, you try not to look at it as a player, but you end up to. And I think anytime you see that, it's more motivation. So for us to be in second place with 6 games to go, our goal is always silverware. So, as nice as it is now, it matters at the end on November 7th after we played Red Bull, where we're standing, how many games we've won from now till then. But, I think we've garnered a respect amongst the league that, Nashville is a formidable opponent in this league. We play our style of soccer and silence the haters.
Go ahead, Tim.
Taylor, I just looked and you did not make it into the previous game against DC, but what do you remember from that game, observing it from the bench and getting a chance to see, obviously, your teammates lead the way to a 5-2 win?
Yeah, I think everything was just clicking that game. I remember watching it. And, DC is a good opponent. They like to high press. They like to get on the front foot. They have a lot of energy, almost similar to Red Bull. But, I think the way that we play, the way that, I think we try and reciprocate the things that we did before, and stick to our game plan. I think we just have to stick to our game plan. It's as simple as that.